I'm just curious when it comes to, I don't know if you see too much of this, but it's another hot topic kind of going on is the foreign investors and out of state buyers, right? Do you see a lot of that as far as like snapping up these available properties?
Yeah, so I've had a lot of California buyers over the last couple of years. They're still nonstop here.
Hmm.
And and then New York is not as much. I mean, a lot of New York people they go down and buy in Florida because it's just closer. Um, we don't see as many Japan buyers because the yen is weak right now
Hmm.
too. But the really wealthy ones are still coming over and doing stuff. And then Canada has always been actually our number one overseas buyer for Hawaii.
Hmm.
And then China has, I would say, has dropped off quite a bit as well. And then with the new administration, this is hearsay. Like I was hearing, like I have Canadian friends and whatnot. They're like trying to sell their properties. They're like, we're out of here. Like we don't want to
Hmm.
deal with this new administration.
Right.
Um, but I would say ever since COVID kind of shut the borders down, the international presence and buying in Hawaii has changed a bit. And but I'm not sure how much that has affected versus the yen because we have a lot. I mean, second to Canada are Japan buyers here.
Hmm.
So yeah, we're still seeing. I think there was a misconception a long time ago that like, oh, Chinese people were coming in and buying all of our property. The
Hmm.
majority of transactions on Oahu are still local people.
Hmm.
It's actually by far just local people doing their everyday thing. So it's not foreigners coming and buying up our land.
Mm. Yeah, it's very interesting. I've heard in the past that Canada is like they're one of the number one countries for tourism here and purchasing homes. And I always leave them out. I always forget about them. I always think immediately it would be Japan, but that's it's always funny. Every time I hear it, I'm like, oh yeah, Canadians are really into Hawaii.
Uh, It's
Um,
because you can't tell between a Canadian and American, but you can tell a
that's
Japanese versus an
that's
American. And
that's
we see
true.
a lot of Japanese people around
That's
buying
true.
up everything.
I'm on the windward side here, and in Kailua pre-COVID, right before COVID, um, they have a lot of the Japanese tourists on bikes, and I mean, it feels like there's just so many there at one point. It was hard to miss them.
Something since you mentioned the windward side, something kind of interesting and I don't know as much about it, but for Japanese citizens, for Japanese nationals, apparently they have this huge tax incentive where they if they buy like a townhome with a wood frame structure, they can like depreciate it heavily. And so we see them in these cycles and they come in and they just target wood frame townhomes and there's tons on the windward side
Huh.
and they know exactly which ones to go for. So it's really interesting. I should look more into that. But yeah.
Yeah, that is interesting. And then I have a friend here who, I guess he purchased. I'm always fascinated by like trying to purchase homes in Japan. And I
Oh yeah.
guess I guess I guess it's actually not too difficult to purchase a home, but the citizenship is extremely difficult. Something like that. But it was interesting hearing about that part.
Yeah, I see. I met this guy randomly and he was like, oh yeah, what I do now is I help people buy properties in Japan. I was like, oh, interesting.
Yeah.
20, $40,000 properties, maybe 100,000, super
Mm,
cheap.
yeah, interesting. So let's shift over to now, you've been following real estate a lot longer than I have, but in my lifetime here, it seems to me, and I could be naive here, it seems like just recently in the past few decades, we've had this kind of it's the HGTV, it's the bigger pockets, it's the Airbnb, the Verbo, all these things kind of come in and it's kind of created this culture of real estate is a great way to make money, right? And it is. It's a great way to like invest and create steady streams of income. Or then you have the flippers, you're going to purchase, a place that needs a lot of work and then flip it for a higher price. I don't remember that always being a thing. And I don't know if you can speak back to before, but I'm thinking that has to have such a huge impact on, just somebody trying to buy their single family home as a family, right? When you're competing with, I feel like there's a lot of people that are investing heavily. Maybe not so now that interest rates change, but do you see the same thing, or do you have any take on that?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, with the internet, right? Like with anything, it's open doors that people didn't even know existed.
Mhm.
Teaching people on investing, on flipping homes, and all this kind of stuff. And especially with Instagram, like my feed is filled with that kind of stuff, right? Um, and yeah, it's become really popular. I mean, it's slowed down a lot, because of the interest rate circumstances and all that kind of stuff. But definitely a lot more of especially flipping going on. Um, I think the bigger pockets, they were really big on investors and short-termers and stuff like that, short-term rentals. But in on Oahu, the Airbnb laws cracked down back in, was it like 2018 or 2019 or something like that?
Right.
Changed a lot. So, we probably, I think the number of Airbnbs decreased by like almost like 90% on Oahu because most of them are illegal. But still, the flipping is still going on. Everywhere I go, there's a flipper, or
Right.
like a wannabe flipper. And Chip and Joanna Gaines, Fixer Upper, that show
Mhm.
back in the day, I think that inspired a lot of people. And then now we have really good guys that are doing that here. Um, and I know a bunch of them personally. And I think it's a mixed bag. And I think once I commented on a Civil Beat article and I got hate blasted by more like four people were hate blasting me. Um, but you know what I think that these guys do, these flippers, yeah, they're doing it for obviously there's personal gain, but what they're doing is they're taking a home that isn't really like lived in, and then they're creating inventory, which we need. Like we need supply here. So in that way, I think it's really good. So I encourage a lot of it as long as it's done responsibly.
Sure. And I don't vilify it. And I think like you said, I think it's a great thing because it does add a lot of value to neighborhoods when somebody can come in and take a house and make it nice. I think there's probably some resent from people who feel like I can't get a home, and I see these people making loads and loads of money by buying homes and flipping them, and so there's resent there, and I understand that side of it too. But no, no fault to the people investing in real estate. It's proved to be super lucrative, uh, and it has a positive impact in a lot of ways on the markets.
You're right. And you know what? These these guys, these flippers, and I'll call them investors, okay? And these investors, they work hard. They work hard to acquire those properties and they
Sure.
have their own, they're not doing anything that we couldn't do to pick up these dilapidated homes.
Mhm.
We could go do that. We just don't know how. We just don't want to.
Right.
Uh, and then the haters will just sit back and just hate. And it's like, well, why don't you go out and do something if,
Sure.
these guys are just taking advantage of what is out there for all of us. So
Sure.
I don't blame them.
No, that's a great point too. They might make it look easy, like they're just, oh look, they just 6 months made $200,000. It's like, yeah, but they've learned throughout the years. They have the team, they know the electricians, they know they have this whole process and they're earning it. That's a great point too, is I think some people might see it as, oh, it's just quick money and it's so easy and but yeah, there's
Yeah,
a lot that goes into it.
exactly.
The opinions and statements presented on this show are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations. Never make any investment or financial decisions based on information offered on this show without first consulting your financial, legal, or tax advisor. All economic and performance information mentioned on the show is historical in nature and is not indicative of any future results. All indices mentioned on this show are unmanaged and cannot be invested in directly. All information is believed to be from reliable sources. However, we make no representation as to its completeness or accuracy. Lastly, all opinions opinions expressed by Jason Cutitta and any guests on the show are solely their own opinions and do not reflect the opinions of or are endorsed by ToBA Financial. For Jason Cutitta, investment advisory services are offered through ToBA Financial LLC, a registered investment advisor offering advisory services in the state of Hawaii and in other jurisdictions where exempt from registration.